Today, I'm going to show you Buttstallion. This is a printed version. This is the finished version. So we're going to be taking this very rough version. We're going to be fixing it, and we're going to be making Buttstallion from Borderlands. I just got an Ender, well, maybe about a year and a half ago. And I had it really dialed in. I mean, I've got some really beautiful prints that I've done that have very little problems with them. But I just got a new glass bed and I just took apart my entire Ender. So I'm basically starting from the beginning again. And there are some things that I know to do, but I've just kind of been rolling with what it's been spitting out. And what I like about it is that I know how to fix things. And as you can see, this leg here is sticking out. It's completely broken. I don't know exactly what happened there. It's kind of funny. But it makes it so that I have to fix it. And what I love about these kind of projects is that they're fairly easy to fix. This came out completely horrible when I first printed it out, and I had to fix it. A couple of the leg spikes were wrong. A couple of things were wrong with it. So I had to do a lot of fixing on this one. This one is a little bit more fixing than this particular project, but now I know how to do it, so I can show you how to do it. The first thing we need to do is to remove the supports. I'm a big fan of the Borderlands franchise, and my husband and I have been playing Borderlands for about 4 years now. We've gone through Borderlands 2, I think, 4 times in the last 2 or 3 years, and we're completionists, so we've been completing each and every step, every side mission, every place on the map we are checking out. We're watching YouTube videos and seeing where are the little secret passages and going and checking that out. And it is a world that is immense, exciting, fun, so many references that I know. It's taught us how to work together very efficiently. It's also taught us our strengths, which I think is really important to find out, who does what in a game. And mainly it's just a lot of fun and something we get to do together. And Borderlands just really, they pump up the illustration kind of aspects of their characters, and I really love that. Also, I mean, as a little girl, who didn't love unicorns, right? It's got some really interesting techniques in it that make it unique and exciting, but they're not too hard to do. So I think this is a really good one to start with. It's also got broad areas and then little detail work. So we can delve into different things without getting too into detail or too into broad areas. Also, it's sparkly and cute. So now that we've removed all the supports and pretty much are keeping a lot of them just in case we need to use them in order to remake any part of this. But we need to get off all of these little nubs. And there's a lot of them. You can kind of see them coming off of the leg. So we're going to be taking off these little nubs here. Pretty much every figurine that comes out of a 3D printer is going to have a little bit of imperfection to it. Even the high-end ones, you're going to have to do some finishing work. What we're going to do is we're going to sand all of these kind of thick nubs off of here. These things are really handy. They're a filing kit. I usually use the flat one, and then I use more of a rounded one for certain areas. So what we're going to do is file these guys off. Kind of a rough edge there. And when you put wood filler in there, it takes all of that down, and then you can sand it to where it all matches. And we're actually, for this one, going to be putting wood filler pretty much everywhere and then continue sanding. It sounds like it's really laborious, but it really isn't. It's kind of relaxing. I just put it right on the print because I'm going to be spreading it around everywhere. I have some water over here. That really helps with the slip. Just be generous. As long as it's wet, you can manipulate it. I'm basically going to be putting this just about everywhere. You don't want to mess up the details, so don't get it here where all the ponytails are. But all the broad areas. Those are fun. Wood filler is easily accessible. It's very cheap, and it's extremely water soluble. If something isn't smooth enough, I can just take some water, even after it's dried, and smooth it out a bit with my finger covered in water. And then as we paint this, it's going to make it watertight, and it's going to make it much a surface that's much harder and that's going to last. We're going to really get that wood filler in there and then smooth it down. It'll look rough. We're going to do a couple passes. This is just to get everything to be a little bit more even. Just want this to feel kind of smooth, but as you can see, the white means that it's definitely getting in there, but you just don't want it to get beyond where the print is. Let's try it with a brush, actually. You can almost see how the planes are now just one. They're no longer the striations of lines. It's more of one piece. And anytime you have too much wood filler, you can always just take it down a little bit with some water. We're going to be sanding off the excess. This is the leg that printed perfect. I mean, the leg itself is perfect. But it printed, for whatever reason, it printed over here. It must have somehow printed this leg and then kicked it over. And then somehow it hit right there and just remained there. I'm not exactly sure how it did that because I was not watching at the time. But I'm really lucky and glad that it did that. because all we have to do is reattach and it's a full leg. So I've put some so that it goes down into the holes on both the leg and the body. And then I'm just going to hold it together for a little bit. It sets up fairly quickly and remains a little bit pliable, so if you need to move it around, you can. I thought it would squish out a little bit, but it didn't. But actually, that's probably good. So we've got this sitting down, aligned with the joint. You might want to make any adjustments and make sure you really look at your figure, you know, in all directions, because you might have one thing aligned, but it might not be aligned, like in the front or the back or on the sides. And once this sets up, I could stand it up and it should be pretty safe. And then if it isn't working, it's still pliable enough. I think it might be ready now to where I can stand it and see if it'll stand, and it does. It should dry about 12 hours. So overnight is good. And then we'll come back in here tomorrow and get the next process going. So now that this has been glued on, and it's pretty solid on there, we're going to put some more wood filler in here to make this joint look better. There's quite a gap right here along this line here. So we need to fill that in. It's going to be very noticeable if we don't. And that, luckily, is exactly what wood filler is for. You can kind of see that what I'm doing, it's really starting to look like planes as opposed to a bunch of lines. I mean, we're getting closer and closer each time I do this. So even if you wanted to do a couple more, you're just going to keep getting closer and closer. The face is an area you want to be very, very light with the wood filler. You want as much detail in this face as possible. And also some of the paint is also going to fill in these gaps. So you want to have enough detail available on the model to where the paint isn't going to look thick and clumpy. So you really just want to, on the face particularly, be very gentle with the wood filler. I've actually been asked before, how do you know when a project is over? How do you know when you're done with it? You know, how do you know to stop? Because art is something really that you're doing on your own. It's pretty subjective. And there are a lot of decision making in the process. So the way that I answer that question is I always stop when there really isn't anything significantly I can add to a project. Like when I look at it and go, okay, all of that looks pretty good. Is there anything I can do to something to make it look better? And when the answer is no, that's when I stop. I want to make sure I have enough detail on the eye, so I'm kind of digging my nail into some of the wood filler just to kind of take some of it off. I usually take this rag, stick it between And then you're just trying to get the excess off. You'll see there's a lot of dust on this rag, but some of it is from the model. You have to be really careful because leverage at this pivot point could be really easy to snap off this tail. So you want to be very gentle and just try to get out any dust so that the paint will stick better. This back area is really going to show. So I want to make sure that it is very taken care of. And when working with a 3D print like this one, the resin prints are probably a lot more sturdy, but these kind, they can break, so make sure that you are very careful when you're holding them, especially at fulcrum points, like where this tail connects and where it connects with the rear. Make sure those fulcrum points are handled very carefully. Okay, so this is one of those cases where I need to get a smaller file. So at this point, I am not seeing any significant improvement by adding more wood filler. And you might be wondering why I'm leaving all of this as is. Well, that is because these are going to be black anyway. So I might want to mix a little wood filler with the black. But they're so small that the wood filler might actually make them look really weird. So I'm just kind of leaving them as is for the moment. This is feeling really good though. It's basically feeling like it's a wood carving. And yet, the wood filler is super light. So this is still really, really light. It doesn't feel like it almost feels like a light piece of wood. Well, now it's time to start painting.